Hi there, or should I say shalom. With everything that's happening lately, I've discovered that the Western news media is giving so much false impression about what is going on, not only in Israel, but everywhere in the world. I follow a fairly neutral, unbiased newspaper called israelnationalnews.com. And it's one I highly recommend. And on the 1st of December, Melanie Phillips posted an article which I would like to read to you now. The headline is, "The BBC and other Western media outlets are far more than mere useful idiots." The devastating Hamas weapon of war is the Western media. Here is Melanie Phillips' article. Hamas, the genocidal jihadi force responsible for the barbaric October the 7th pogrom in Israel, has a devastating weapon of war. That weapon is the Western media. With some honourable exceptions, these media outlets have been doing Hamas's filthy work for it. Despite the terror group's record of lying through its teeth, the media accepts what it says at face value while casting doubt on everything said by the habitually truthful Israelis. On November the 8th, Christine Amanpour said on CNN that over 4,300 children have been killed during Israelis' military operations in Gaza. She admitted that this figure was according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Ramallah, but the numbers were in fact issued by the ministry's Gaza branch, which is run by Hamas. Like countless other journalists, Amanpour failed to note that Hamas never acknowledged a single terrorist among these fatalities, and that the designation children includes its many teenage terrorists. These media outlets never give up on their determination to paint Israel falsely as a mediocre and bloodthirsty aggressor. Journalists sneered at Israel's repeated claims of Hamas command tunnels beneath Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital, even as the IDF started to produce videos of these tunnels showing their arched roof, toilets and rooms using electricity sourced from the hospital. The New York Times continued to falsely assert that the Israelis have not shown conclusive evidence of a vast network of tunnels. These outlets haven't just been shilling for Hamas, but for other Palestine Arabs represented as struggling against iron-fisted Israeli oppression. The media ignored or waved away the fact that many of the Palestinian Arab prisoners released from Israeli jails in return for the release of Israeli hostages have convictions for terrorist violence. Worse still, journalists have drawn a depraved moral equivalence between Israeli hostages released by Hamas and the Palestinian Arab terrorist prisoners released by Israel. The most jaw-dropping example was on Sky News. Interviewer Kay Burley put to an incredulous Israeli spokesman, Elon Levy, the astounding claim made by a hostage negotiator that the ratio of 3 Palestinian prisoners exchanged for every Israeli hostage meant the Israelis valued Palestinian Arab lives less than Israeli lives. Burley actually believed that the sick and twisted misrepresentation of Hamas extortion as bigotry on Israelis' part was a serious point that required an answer. Levy called it disgusting, and he was right. There have been countless examples of Western journalists going out of their way to sanitize Hamas and deny the enormity of its crimes. When the Israeli hostages started to be released, Sky's international editor, Dominic Waghorn, reported that they had been held in reasonable conditions. Reportedly, though those held above ground lived with the fear of being killed in Israelis' bombardment. Yet we now know that some of the Jewish hostages were beaten with electric cables. The elderly hostages were suffering from malnutrition, and one of them, who hadn't been given the medication she needed, was airlifted to an Israeli hospital in critical condition. The child hostages were treated with unspeakable cruelty and sadism, from which they have already displayed lasting ill effects. They were instructed to speak in whispers and told they would be shot if they made a noise. One child was beaten, kept in solitary confinement for 16 days and forced to watch videos of the October 7 massacre. When he cried, he was threatened at gunpoint. Yet Waghorn actually suggested that Israel was to blame for the worst the hostages have suffered through the fear of being killed in its air raids. The most important serial offender is the BBC. The BBC not only dwarfs other outlets in its global reach, but, most important of all, it is trusted everywhere as a kind mark of objectivity. The harm it has done by sanitizing Hamas and inciting hatred of Israel is morally beyond the pale, is therefore hard to exaggerate. There have been innumerable examples of the BBC's selective, distorted reporting using Hamas propaganda as legitimate talking points and twisting itself into a pretzel to cast Israel in the worst possible light. On October the 17th, a few hours after the first reports of an explosion at Gaza's Al-Hali hospital that Hamas blamed on Israel, the BBC's international editor Jeremy Bowen reported the missile hit the hospital not long after dark. The explosion destroyed the hospital. The building was flattened. Yet, even after it was established that a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket had merely hit the hospital's car park and killed a far smaller number of people than Hamas had claimed, and that nothing was flattened, Bowen airily dismissed his falsehoods, saying, "I don't regret one thing in my reporting because I think I was measured throughout. I didn't race to judgment." The only thing more outstanding than such arrogance in the face of what was at best inexcusable sloppiness and at worst malign bias is that the BBC continues to use Bowen as an authoritative commentator on the war in Gaza. Not only have BBC journalists displayed gross moral bankruptcy over the war, but a number of them have openly supported Hamas. Multiple presenters on the BBC's Asian network radio station have accused Israel of committing genocide, sharing conspiracy theory videos, and encouraged followers to attend pro-Palestinian marches. The Committee of Accuracy in Middle East Reporting Analysis, CAMRA, has flagged several posts by BBC journalists rejoicing at the October 7 atrocities, supporting Palestinian brethren in their war against the occupying entity. A day after Israeli women and children were beheaded, raped, and burned alive, and exulting in the Palestinian resistance taking the initiative and surprises the Israeli occupier with an operation of quality. Yet the BBC has refused to take any disciplinary action against such employees. Instead, Guz Khan, a comedian who has accused Israel of ethnic cleansing and genocide in Gaza, has been booked to host the popular BBC panel show Have I Got News for You? Most of the BBC, like the rest of the media, subscribe to progressive nostrums, according to which support for the Palestinian Arabs is the cause of causes. With universities and schools having pumped out Palestinian Arab lies for decades, millions in the West have never heard the real facts about the Arab war against Israel. Consequently, they refuse to believe even the evidence of their own eyes when it conflicts with the poisonous anti-Israel consensus. Hamas understands this dynamic only too well. Western values are based on respect for human life and compassion for suffering. By contrast, Hamas, like other Islamists, privileges death over life and is motivated by psychopathic fanaticism. It understands that people in the West are horrified by the killing of innocent civilians in war, particularly children. It also understands that the West, contrary to its own wartime behaviour, no longer makes a distinction between civilians who are deliberately slaughtered and civilians who are unintentionally but unavoidably killed in the course of war to prevent further slaughter. Western populations thus put pressure on their governments to force Israel to stop defending itself against Hamas, giving Hamas the ability to continue slaughtering Israelis. So Hamas ensures that as many Gazan civilians as possible are killed under Israeli bombardment by forcing them at gunpoint to become human shields and cannon fodder. It distributes the resulting images to Western news desks, ravenous for copy, and that depend upon journalists and photographers who either support Hamas or understand that if they don't do what Hamas wants, they will be killed. The BBC and other Western media outlets have thus become more than useful idiots. In behaving exactly as Hamas wants in recruiting the Western public to service its war aims, the media have become a critical weapon deployed by those waging war against both Israel and civilization. As a result, it's as if both Stalin and Hitler have been afforded a posthumous victory. Okay, well, sorry, sort of not perfect reading, but anyway, do get back to me. You can reach me by email on Slazenger. Oh, I've forgotten the email address. Never mind. I'll put it in the comments when I upload this to YouTube. Okay, hope that all goes right. Shalom.